Admiral Sarah Chen stood in her command center, watching the red warning lights flash across every screen. The message from Council Prime had arrived 30 minutes ago. She had read it 12 times, but the words still felt like ice in her chest. Humanity is no longer welcome in the Galactic Council. All support ends now. You have 48 hours to return all Council technology and leave Council space. 50 years. 50 years of serving the galaxy, 50 years of sending human soldiers to die in council wars, 50 years of sharing Earth's resources, knowledge, and hope with species that now threw them away like garbage. The communication officer turned in his chair. Admiral, we're getting reports from all the outer colonies, Vrex ships everywhere. They're not responding to our calls. Sarah closed her eyes. The Vrex Imperium had been at war with the Council for decades. Brutal, efficient killers who took worlds like a disease takes a body. The Council had always promised to protect human space. Now those same Council ships were pulling back, leaving the colonies naked and alone. How many people? She asked. 12 million on New Geneva. 8 million on Kepler Station, 5 million on total. The officer's voice cracked. 47 million, Admiral, in the outer colonies. Sarah's hands gripped the rail in front of her. 47 million human lives. Children playing in dome cities, farmers growing food in alien soil, scientists studying new worlds. All of them about to face the Vrex alone. What about our defense fleets? The Council recalled them. 3 days ago, said they needed them for strategic repositioning. Our requests for information were denied. 3 days ago, the Council had known this was coming for 3 days and said nothing. They had pulled Earth's defenders away and left the colonies, open like a door in a storm. The main screen lit up with an incoming transmission. The symbol of the Galactic Council appeared, followed by the face of High Counselor Vextai. The alien's 3 eyes showed no emotion as it spoke. Admiral Chen, I trust you have received our communication regarding humanity's new status. You mean our expulsion, Sarah said, her voice steady despite the rage building inside her. A necessary decision for galactic stability. The Vrex have agreed to cease hostilities in exchange for human territories. The mathematics are simple. 47 million human lives versus billions across the galaxy. The choice was obvious. Sarah stared at the screen. You sold us. You sold us to save yourselves. We made a practical decision. Humanity has always been too aggressive, too unpredictable. Your species challenges established order. The Vrex wanted your colonies, and frankly, many council members believe the galaxy will be more stable without human interference. And our people? The families on those worlds? Vextai's middle eye blinked slowly. The Vrex have assured us they will treat human populations according to their customs. Sarah knew what Vrex customs meant. Slavery for the useful ones, death for the rest. She had seen the reports from their conquered worlds. The Council knew. 2, you have 48 hours to comply with our terms, Vextai continued. Return all Council technology, withdraw to your solar system, and remain there. Any attempt to interfere with Vrex operations will be considered an act of war against the entire Council. The transmission ended. Sarah stood in silence for a long moment. Around her, the bridge crew waited. Some had tears in their eyes. Others showed the cold anger she felt burning in her own chest. Admiral, the communications officer said quietly, we're getting emergency signals from New Geneva. Put it through. The screen showed Colonel Martinez, commander of New Geneva's Defense Force. His face was covered in dust and blood. Behind him, the sky burned red. "Admiral, they're landing troops everywhere. We can't hold them. The civilians—" An explosion cut off his words. When the image cleared, he was back. "They're targeting the schools first, the hospitals. They want to break us fast." "How long can you hold?" "Maybe 6 hours. Maybe less." "Admiral, my daughter is in the primary school. She's 8 years old. Please." Another explosion. The transmission went dead. Sarah turned to her tactical officer. "How long to reach New Geneva?" 18 hours at maximum speed, Admiral, but we only have 3 ships in range. 3 ships against a Vrex invasion fleet. It would be suicide. But those were her people down there. Human children hiding in schools while monsters landed around them. "Admiral," her executive officer said carefully. The council was clear. "Any interference would be an act of war," Sarah finished, "against a council that just threw us to the wolves to save themselves." She walked to the central command console and activated the fleet-wide communication system. Every human ship in space would hear this. Every colony, every station, every outpost. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen speaking to all human forces. 1 hour ago, the Galactic Council expelled humanity from their alliance. They have given our colonies to the Vrex Imperium in exchange for peace. As I speak, Vrex forces are attacking our people, killing our children. The Council considers this acceptable." She paused, looking at the faces around her. Good people, brave people, people who had served the galaxy with honor and received betrayal in return. For 50 years, we believed in the Council's vision of peace. We shared our technology, our resources, our lives. We fought their wars and died for their causes. We thought we were building something together. We were wrong. Another pause. On the screens around her, she could see reports flooding in. Colony after colony going dark. Distress signals cut short. The systematic destruction of everything humanity had built among the stars. The Council has made their choice. They have shown us exactly how much human life is worth to them. Nothing. We are nothing to them. Tools to be used and thrown away. When convenient. Her voice grew harder. If they want us gone, we'll leave. All of us, every human ship, every colony, every outpost. We'll take our people and go, but we won't go quietly, and we won't go begging. She looked directly into the camera now, knowing her words would reach every human in space. We trusted them once. We gave them everything we had. They betrayed us. They will never get the chance to betray us again. Around the bridge, her crew straightened. The despair in their eyes was changing to something else, something colder and more determined. All ships are to begin immediate evacuation of human civilians from threatened colonies. We save who we can. Those we can't save. Sarah's voice caught for just a moment. Those we can't save, we remember. Every name, every face, every child. She turned to her navigation officer. Set course for Earth. Maximum speed. Admiral, what about the Council's deadline? The technology they want returned? Sarah smiled, but there was no warmth in it. They'll get their technology back. Every bit of it. But not the way they expect. As her ship turned toward home, Sarah looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, human families were dying because the galaxy had decided their lives didn't matter. The Council thought they could use humanity and discard them when it was convenient. They would learn how wrong they were. Humanity was leaving, but they would make sure the galaxy never forgot what they had lost, what they had thrown away, what they had chosen to destroy. The stars seemed colder now, less welcoming. But that was fine. Humanity would find their own way among them. And when they did, the galaxy would understand the true cost of their betrayal. Dr. Marcus Webb stood in the deepest laboratory on Earth, 2 miles beneath the Swiss mountains. Around him, machines hummed with power that made the air itself taste of metal and ozone. He had not slept in 36 hours, but his eyes were bright with the fire of discovery. 2 years had passed since the Council's betrayal. 2 years since the Vreks had taken the outer colonies. 2 years since humanity learned that trust was a luxury they could not afford. Now, in the hidden depths of Earth, they were preparing to do something the galaxy had never seen. "Dr. Webb, the Council observer is here," his assistant said. Marcus nodded. They had been expecting this visit. The Council was nervous. They should be. The door opened, and Ambassador Kithan entered. The tall, thin alien moved carefully, as if the very air around him might be dangerous. His 4 arms gestured nervously as he spoke. "Dr. Webb, the Council is concerned about the energy readings from this facility. What exactly are you building? Here?" Marcus smiled. "Freedom, Ambassador. We're building freedom." That is not an answer. The Council has a right to know what weapons humanity is developing. "Weapons?" Marcus laughed, but the sound was cold. "We're not building weapons. We're building something much more important. We're building a way out." Kithan's eyes narrowed. "Out of what?" "Out of here. Out of this reality. Out of your reach forever." The alien stepped back. "Explain." Marcus gestured to the massive machines around them. Cables thick as trees carried power between towers that reached toward the ceiling. At the center of it all, a sphere of perfect black hung in the air, held by fields that bent light around their edges. "For 50 years you taught us about space travel, about the dimensions that let ships move faster than light, about time and gravity and the forces that hold the universe together. You thought you were giving us gifts. You were, just not the gifts you intended." Marcus walked to a control panel and activated a holographic display. The image showed Earth's solar system, but wrong somehow. The planets moved in stuttering, jerky motions, as if reality itself was having trouble keeping up. "You see, Ambassador, you missed something important about humans. We don't just learn what you teach us. We improve it. We push it further. We ask questions you never thought to ask." "What questions?" "Like this one. If consciousness can observe reality, can it also change reality? And if so, what happens when you remove all the observers from a piece of space-time?" Kithan stared at the display. "That is not possible, isn't it?" Marcus touched another control and the image zoomed out. Now it showed not just Earth's system, but the space around it for dozens of light years. And that space was empty. Not empty of matter, but empty of meaning. Stars existed there. Planets orbited, but they seemed flat somehow, like pictures instead of real things. Time isn't just the 4th dimension, Ambassador. It's the dimension that gives meaning to the other 3. Past, present, future, these aren't just measurements. They're the story that consciousness tells about reality. Take away the consciousness, take away the observers, and the story stops being told. The alien's voice was barely a whisper. "What have you done?" "Nothing yet. But we're going to. Every human ship, every station, every person, we're leaving. All of us, at the same time. And when we go, we're taking something with us that you never realized we had." "Which is?" Marcus's smile was gentle now, almost sad. "The ability to experience linear time. You see, most species in the galaxy experience time differently than humans do. You see it as a river you can swim in, moving backward and forward as you choose. You remember the future as clearly as the past. But humans? We experience time as an arrow, always forward, always in sequence, always building cause and effect, moment by moment. He gestured to the machines around them. For 2 years we've been studying this. We've learned that consciousness doesn't just observe reality, it creates it. And human consciousness, with our stubborn insistence on linear causality, has been unconsciously holding the timeline together, keeping cause and effect working properly, making sure that when something happens, it happened for a reason. Kit Hand's forearms trembled. You cannot be serious. We are completely serious. Watch. Marcus activated another display. This one showed a recording from yesterday, a simple scene, a human child dropping a ball. The ball fell down, bounced 3 times and rolled to a stop. Normal physics, normal causality. Then he showed the same scene from this morning. The child dropped the ball. The ball fell up. No, it fell down and up at the same time. No, it never fell at all. It was always on the ground. The recording flickered between these possibilities, unable to decide which version was real. That child left Earth this morning, Marcus said quietly, emigrated to one of our colony ships in the outer system, and reality can't quite remember how physics is supposed to work without human minds there to insist on it. The ambassador staggered backward. This is madness. You will destroy everything. Will we? Marcus asked. Or will we finally be free? Free from councils that betray us. Free from aliens who see us as tools. Free from a galaxy that uses us and throws us away. He walked to the central sphere, the black heart of the machine. In 6 hours, every human in existence will step into machines like this one. We'll translate ourselves out of this reality and into something new. Somewhere the council can never reach us. Somewhere we can build what we choose to build without interference. But the timeline will collapse, Marcus finished. Yes, slowly at first. The areas where humans lived will start to forget their own past. Cause and effect will become negotiable. History will become uncertain. And it will spread outward from there, growing faster as it goes. Kit Han's voice was desperate now. You cannot do this. Billions will die when reality breaks down. Marcus turned to face him, and for the first time, the alien saw the depth of human pain in his eyes, the grief of betrayal, the rage of abandonment, the cold calculation of a species that had been pushed too far. Billions already died when you handed us to the Vrex. Children burned alive in schools while you signed peace treaties. Families torn apart while you calculated acceptable losses. You taught us that life has no value if it's inconvenient to the powerful. He gestured around the laboratory. This is your lesson, Ambassador, applied perfectly. We're making a practical decision. Human survival versus galactic stability. The mathematics are simple, just like you taught us. The ambassador fell to his knees. Please, there must be another way. There was, Marcus said sadly. There was a way where we stayed, where we helped hold your galaxy together, where we served and protected and built something beautiful together. You chose differently. He began walking toward his own translation chamber, a smaller version of the Great Sphere. You made it very clear that humanity has no place in your galaxy. So we're leaving, all of us. And since you never valued what we brought to the table, you won't miss what goes with us. What about the colonies? The humans who are already gone? Marcus paused at the chamber door. They're waiting for us, outside of time, outside of space, in a place we've built just for us. When the last human on Earth steps through, we'll all be together again. Every person the Vrex killed, every child who died in your betrayal. They're already there, waiting to see what we build next. The chamber door began to close. Tell the Council something for me, Ambassador. Tell them we left them a gift. In 12 hours, when the timeline collapse reaches Council space, they'll learn exactly how much work consciousness really does. They'll learn what it means to hold reality together by sheer force of will. The door sealed with a soft click. Kit Han knelt alone in the laboratory as the great machines powered down around him. In the distance, he could hear the sound of humanity leaving. Ships launching, stations going dark. The quiet hum of 8 billion people stepping out of reality itself. On the screens around him, warnings flashed in a dozen languages. Timeline. Instability detected. Causality errors increasing. Reality coherence falling. And in the growing silence, a message began broadcasting on every frequency. The last words humanity would speak to the galaxy that had abandoned them. We told you no one would come back. We meant it. Even we can't return to what we were. Take care of what we left behind. You're going to need to learn how to do it yourselves. The machines went dark. The laboratory fell silent. Humanity was gone. Council researcher HFY floated in the observation deck of the science vessel Eternal Truth, staring at the place where Earth used to be. 5 years had passed since humanity's disappearance, and the solar system hung in space like a wound that refused to heal. Computer, show me the Sol system records from before the human departure, she said. The holographic display flickered to life, showing a vibrant yellow star surrounded by 9 planets. Orbital stations dotted the space between worlds. Traffic, lanes marked with the constant flow of ships, a living system full of activity and purpose. Now show me current scans. The display updated. The star was still there. The planets still orbited in their ancient paths, but everything else was wrong. The space between worlds felt empty in a way that had nothing to do with the absence of ships. It was as if the very concept of between had become uncertain. Computer, how many planets in the Sol system? Scanning. Unable to determine. Data is contradictory. HFY's tentacles twisted with frustration. This was the problem they faced. Everywhere humanity had once lived. Reality itself could not agree on basic facts. Sometimes the sensors showed 9 planets, sometimes 8. Once, memorably, the system had briefly contained 14 worlds that had never existed before and vanished again an hour later. Dr. HFY, came a voice from behind her. She turned to see Captain Mordun entering the observation deck. The massive warrior's usual confidence was missing, replaced by the same unease they all felt in this place. Captain, what news from the probe teams? They're confused, Mordun said carefully. Team 3 landed on the 4th planet successfully. They report a dead world, no signs of human habitation. But Team 5 says the 4th planet has cities. Empty cities with no signs they were ever abandoned. And Team 7 insists there is no 4th planet at all. HFY's research organs pulsed with interest and worry. All teams are using the same scanning equipment? Identical. And Doctor, that's not the strangest part. When we tried to coordinate between teams, we found that they're not just seeing different things. They're seeing different histories. Team 3 says this system was never inhabited by humans. Team 5 has records of a great civilization that lasted 1,000 years. Team 7's computers show no records of humans ever existing. The researcher moved to her instruments, checking readings that made less sense each day. The temporal distortion is accelerating, isn't it? Yes, and spreading. The anomaly zone has grown again. It now reaches 30 light-years from Sol in all directions. Everything inside it is becoming unstable. HFY brought up a galactic map. A red zone marked the area where cause and effect no longer worked properly, where ships sent distress, calls before they encountered danger, where planets forgot their own geological history, where stars burned with light that had no source. Show me the latest reports from the edge zones. The display filled with incident reports, trade ships that arrived at their destinations before they departed, communication delays that worked backward, with replies coming before messages were sent. Space stations that existed on Monday had never been built on Tuesday and were ancient. Ruins on Wednesday. The Vrex territories are the worst affected, Morden said grimly. The worlds they took from humanity are unstable. Their conquest fleets keep arriving to invade planets they've already conquered. Their commanders receive victory reports for battles that haven't happened yet. Serves them right, HFY muttered, then immediately felt ashamed. The breakdown of causality was affecting innocent civilians, too. Vrex children who couldn't understand why their toys sometimes unbuilt themselves. Vrex farmers who planted crops that grew backward into seeds. Doctor, there's something else. The Council wants a full report on your findings. They're scared. They should be. HFY manipulated her controls, bringing up her research data. Captain, do you understand what consciousness really does? Morden's warrior training had not prepared him for this kind of discussion. It thinks? More than that, it observes. It creates meaning from chaos. When you look at a star, your mind doesn't just see light. It creates the concept of star from that light. It builds causality. It insists that the light comes from the A star because the star is burning. Your consciousness takes random events and forces them into a story that makes sense. She manipulated the display, showing a simple diagram of cause and effect. Most species do this unconsciously. You see something happen, and your mind automatically creates the why behind it. But humans were different. Their consciousness was particularly good at creating linear causality. They experienced time as a strict sequence: cause, then effect, then consequence. Always in order, always building on what came before. And without them, the universe is forgetting how to tell time. HFY's voice grew heavy with the weight of discovery. Every moment requires observers to give it meaning. Every event needs conscious minds to place it in sequence with other events. Human minds were particularly good at this job. They were like temporal anchors, keeping the flow of time steady and predictable. Morden stared at the readings. How long before it reaches Council space? At current expansion rates? 2 years. Maybe less. And when it does? HFY was quiet for a long moment. Outside the observation deck, space looked normal. Stars burned with steady light. The ship moved through vacuum as ships always had. But she knew it was an illusion. Reality was only holding together through the conscious effort of the crew aboard their ship. When they left, this space would forget how physics worked. When it reaches Council space, we'll learn exactly how much work consciousness really does, she said finally. We'll find out what happens when an entire galaxy has to hold reality together by force of will instead of taking it for granted. Can we evacuate the affected zones? Evacuate to where? Captain, this isn't like a natural disaster. When the temporal collapse reaches a system, it doesn't just affect that system, it affects the history of that system. Ships that evacuated find they never had anywhere to evacuate from. Refugees arrive at relief centers that never had any reason to exist. The captain's hands gripped the observation rail. There has to be something we can do, some way to fix this. Maybe. HFY brought up another display, this one showing the energy patterns at the edge of the anomaly zone. I've been studying the border regions, places where the breakdown is just beginning, and I found something interesting. The display showed a space station at the very edge of the affected area. Half of it existed normally. The other half flickered between different versions of itself. Sometimes new, sometimes ancient, sometimes never built at all. The breakdown isn't random, she continued. It follows specific patterns. It's almost as if reality is trying to maintain stability but doesn't know how. Like a machine running without an operator. What does that mean? It means the universe wants to work properly. It just needs guidance. Conscious minds that can do what human minds did automatically. Minds that can insist on linear causality and make it stick. Morden's eyes widened. You're talking about replacing humanity? Not replacing. Substituting. If we could learn to experience time the way humans did, if we could train our consciousness to create the same kind of temporal stability they provided naturally. The Council will never agree to that. To change the fundamental way our minds work, HFY turned back to the window, looking out at the space where Earth once spun. They'll have to, because the alternative is watching reality itself dissolve into chaos. And Captain, there's one more thing. Something I haven't told anyone yet. What? I've been monitoring quantum fluctuations throughout the affected zones, and I'm detecting patterns, messages encoded in the structure of space-time itself, left behind by humanity before they departed. Morden moved closer. What do the messages say? Instructions. Mathematical frameworks. Blueprints for consciousness modification. They knew this would happen, Captain. They knew exactly what their departure would do to the galaxy. And they left us a way to fix it. Why would they do that? After what we did to them. HFY's research. Organs pulsed with something that might have been admiration. Because despite everything, they're still human, still trying to help, still hoping we can learn to be better than we were. She touched the controls again, and the display showed one final image. A message, written in mathematical symbols that somehow conveyed meaning beyond mere numbers. We told you no one would come back. We meant it. But we also told you to take care of what we left behind. This is how. Learn to see time as we did. Learn to hold causality together through will and hope and stubborn determination. Learn to be the observers the universe needs, or watch it all fall apart. The choice is yours. It always was. Outside the ship, reality flickered once and stabilized. For now, Captain Veldtar stood on the bridge of the Council's most advanced exploration vessel, the Dimensional Seeker. Around her, the best scientists and explorers from 50 different species worked at stations that hummed with power beyond anything the galaxy had built before. Their mission was simple in words, but impossible in practice. Find humanity and bring them back before reality collapsed completely. "Status report," she called out. "We're approaching the dimensional anchor point," replied Dr. Kessestol, the expedition's chief physicist. Quantum resonance patterns suggest human passage through this region approximately 7 years ago. 7 years. That was 2 years before humanity's mass departure from normal space-time. They had been preparing for longer than anyone realized. Put it on the main screen. The view screen showed what looked like empty space, but Veltar's trained. I could see the signs. Space here was wrong. Not visibly, but fundamentally. Light moved in curves that had no cause. Gravity pulled in directions that shouldn't exist. And through it all, the faint signature of human technology. They were testing their translation methods here, said Dr. Yilmoth, the team's specialist in alternate realities. See these quantum scars? They're from multiple attempts to breach dimensional barriers. The humans were learning how to step outside of our universe entirely. Veltar nodded grimly. The past 3 years had been a nightmare of searching. Every lead humanity had left behind took them deeper into concepts that challenged everything the Council thought they knew about reality. Pocket dimensions, parallel timelines, universes where the laws of physics worked differently. And through it all, signs that humanity had not just stumbled into these places, but had learned to navigate them with growing skill. Dr. Kessetol, what about the message fragments we detected last week? The physicist manipulated his controls, and the main screen filled with equations written in mathematical languages that hurt to look at. We found them embedded in the quantum structure of a collapsed star in the Vega system. Definitely human in origin, but the mathematics... Captain, they're describing technologies that shouldn't be possible. Show me. The equations shifted and flowed, describing machines that could exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Consciousness transfer techniques that allowed beings to observe all possible timelines at once. Most disturbing of all, methods for stepping so far outside of normal space-time that return became impossible. They're not just hiding from us, Dr. Yilmoth said quietly. They're transforming themselves into something we can barely comprehend. But they're still human, aren't they? The question hung in the air unanswered. Over the past 3 years, the search teams had found traces of humanity in dozens of parallel universes, abandoned research stations in dimensions where time moved backward, quantum signatures in realities where consciousness and matter were the same thing, mathematical proofs written in languages that existed only in universes where math itself was alive. Captain, the communications officer called out, we're receiving a transmission. It's strange. Strange how? It's coming from everywhere at once, and it's not being sent to us specifically. It's more like we're overhearing a conversation. Put it through. The bridge filled with static, then slowly resolved into voices. Human voices, but changed somehow, speaking in harmonies that suggested multiple people sharing the same thoughts. The search teams are getting closer, one voice said. Should we help them? Asked another. We can't, replied a third. The very act of communication would pull us back toward linear time. We've moved too far beyond that state. But they're trying to save their reality. Their reality is breaking down because they never learned to maintain it properly. We held it together unconsciously. Now they must learn to do it consciously or accept the consequences. Veltar stepped forward. This is Captain Veltar of the Council Exploration Fleet. We need your help. The galaxy is dying without you. The voices paused. When they resumed, there was something that might have been sadness in the harmonies. Captain Veltar, we know who you are. We've been watching your search through dimensions we can no longer fully remember. Then you know why we're here. Come back. Help us fix what's broken. We can't come back. Do you understand what we are now? We exist in all possible timelines simultaneously. We observe every moment that has ever been or could ever be. We are the watchers at the edge of reality itself. To return to your single timeline would be like asking an ocean to flow through a straw. Dr. Kessitol pushed forward. But you were human once. You must remember what that was like. The laughter that followed was vast and hollow. We remember everything, Doctor. Every human who ever lived, every choice ever made, every path ever taken. We remember the universe where humanity stayed and fought the Vrex. We remember the reality where we joined different galactic civilizations. We remember timelines where Earth never developed life at all. Then you remember why you left, Veltar said. The Council's betrayal. The lives lost. Can't you forgive us? Forgiveness? The voices seemed puzzled by the concept. Captain, forgiveness requires linear time. It requires a past to forgive and a future to move toward. We exist in all moments, simultaneously. From our perspective, the betrayal is happening now, has already been forgiven, and never occurred at all. These concepts have no meaning for what we have become. The transmission began to fade. Wait, Veltar called out. If you can't return, then tell us how to fix this ourselves. The temporal collapse is accelerating. Our reality is dying. Look deeper, the voices whispered as they faded. Look in the places where your reality borders ours. We left you more than instructions, Captain. We left you hope. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Dr. Yilmoth, Veltar said finally. What did they mean? What places border their reality and ours? The scientist was already working at his console. Captain, I'm detecting massive structures at the edge of the temporal anomaly zone. They're artificial. And they're positioned at precise points around the expanding breakdown. The main screen showed a three-dimensional map of local space. Red marked the areas where causality had failed, and surrounding those areas, at mathematically precise intervals, were structures that defied classification. Part machine, part mathematics, part something that existed only in the spaces between dimensions. They're stabilizers, Dr. Kestol breathed. Humanity built dimensional anchors. They're not just trying to fix the breakdown. They're containing it. More than that, Dr. Yilmoth added, his voice filled with wonder. Look at the power sources. These aren't running on conventional energy. They're being powered by consciousness itself. By minds that can perceive multiple timelines simultaneously. Veltar felt a chill run through her body. You mean... I mean, some of humanity didn't fully transcend. Some of them stayed behind, existing partially in our reality and partially in theirs. They're using their transformed consciousness to hold our timeline stable while we figure out how to do it ourselves. The captain stared at the display. Dozens of points of light surrounded the chaos zone, each one representing a human mind stretched across dimensions, sacrificing its transcendence to give the galaxy time to learn. How long can they maintain this? Unknown. But, Captain, there's something else. Each stabilizer is also a beacon. They're broadcasting the consciousness modification, techniques that Dr. Zixhai discovered, teaching other species how to experience linear time the way humans did. And if we learn, then maybe we can take over the job. Maybe we can let the remaining humans complete their transformation and finally find peace. Veltar looked around her bridge crew, representatives of 6 different species, all working together for the first time in galactic history. The crisis had done what centuries of politics never could. It had forced them to truly cooperate. "Set course for the nearest stabilizer," she ordered. "It's time we learned what humanity tried to teach us all along." As the ship turned toward the beacon, the communications officer picked up one last transmission. Faint and distant, but unmistakably human. "We're still here, Captain. We're still trying to help. We always will be. Learn quickly, learn well, and remember, the universe doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be loved." The message faded, but the hope it carried remained. The great assembly hall of Council Prime had never seen anything like this. Representatives from every species in the galaxy floated, sat, or stood in their designated areas, but for the first time in galactic history, they were not divided by politics or territorial disputes. They were united by terror. High Counselor Vextai looked out at the gathering and felt the weight of failure crushing down on her. 3 of her eyes focused on the holographic display at the center of the hall, showing the galaxy in real time. The red zones marking temporal collapse now covered 1/3 of known space. Entire star systems flickered between existence and void. Trade routes that had operated for millennia simply stopped working when cause and effect became negotiable. "The situation is beyond critical," she announced, her voice carrying to every corner of the vast hall. "The temporal cascade has reached the core worlds. Yesterday, the Altarian home system reported that their sun both existed and didn't exist, simultaneously for 6 hours. The Kethtul Empire has lost contact with 40% of their colonies, not because the colonies were destroyed, but because history can no longer agree that they were ever colonized." A representative from the Vrex Imperium rose to speak. Admiral Krextor, one of the few Vrex leaders who had survived the chaos in their territories. "High Counselor, my people demand to know how the Council will fix this. Our conquests in human space have become impossible to maintain. Our fleets arrive to invade worlds they've already conquered, only to find they never conquered them at all. Your people," called out Ambassador Thysiali from the Cetacean Alliance, "brought this upon themselves when they accepted human colonies as payment for peace. The breakdown began in your territories because you were occupying space that was fundamentally dependent on human consciousness to maintain stability." The Vrex Admiral's claws extended. "Are you suggesting we should have refused the Council's offer?" "I'm suggesting," Thysiali replied coldly, "that none of us understood what we were giving up when we betrayed humanity." The hall erupted in arguments. Accusations flew between species. The Altarians blamed the Vrex for triggering the cascade. The Kethtul blamed the Council for making the deal. The smaller species blamed everyone for putting them at risk. High Counselor Vextai activated the hall's silence field, cutting off all sound except her own voice. "Enough. Blame will not solve this crisis. We need solutions." Dr. Zixhai rose. From the Scientific Advisory Section. "High Counselor, I believe we have a solution, but it will require something the Council has never attempted before." "Speak." Zixhai manipulated her controls, and the central display changed to show the consciousness modification techniques that humanity had left behind. For the past 2 years, teams across the galaxy have been studying the stabilizer beacons that humanity left around the collapse zones. We now understand how they work. The display showed complex neural patterns, the way human consciousness processed time differently from other species. Humans experience time as a linear sequence, past, present, future, each building on the last. Most of our species experience time as a more fluid concept, able to perceive multiple possibilities simultaneously. But the universe seems to require linear observers to maintain causal stability. "What are you proposing?" asked the Vrex Admiral. "Consciousness modification. If we can train our minds to process time the way humans did, we can take over the job of maintaining timeline stability. But it can't be just a few individuals. It has to be a coordinated effort across multiple species." The hall fell silent. What she was suggesting was unprecedented, not just cooperation between species, but actual mental integration, sharing consciousness across the galaxy. Captain Veltar stood up in the exploration section. "High Counselor, I've seen the stabilizers firsthand. There are still humans there, holding our reality together while we learn. They're sacrificing their transcendence to give us time. We can't let that sacrifice be meaningless." "How would this work?" asked Ambassador Thaisali. Dr. Zixhai brought up new displays. "We establish consciousness networks across the galaxy. Groups of minds from different species, all trained to experience linear time, all working together to maintain causal stability in their local regions. Like a vast neural network with the galaxy as its body." "The mathematics are complex," added Dr. Kestol, "but workable. Each network would need representatives from at least 5 different species to provide sufficient consciousness diversity, and the networks would need to be in constant communication to coordinate timeline maintenance." The Vrex Admiral's voice was skeptical. "You're asking us to link our minds with other species, to share thoughts, memories, experiences. My people will never agree to this." "Your people," said Captain Veltar quietly, "are already dying when reality forgets they exist. This isn't about what we want anymore. It's about survival." High Counselor Vextai studied the data. "Dr. Zixhai, what are the risks?" "Unknown," the researcher admitted. "This has never been attempted before. We could lose individual identity in the network. We could experience temporal feedback that damages consciousness itself. Or we could discover that some species' minds are simply incompatible with linear time processing. And if we don't try, the cascade will reach Council Prime within 6 months. At that point, even the core worlds will begin to forget their own history. The galactic government will collapse not because it's defeated, but because reality will be unable to maintain the concept of government itself." The hall was quiet for a long moment. Then, unexpectedly, Admiral Krextor spoke. "My fleets are trapped in territories that exist and don't exist simultaneously. My soldiers are fighting battles that unhappen as they fight them. If this consciousness network can fix that, the Vrex Empire agrees to participate." One by one, other representatives stood. The Altarians, desperate to save their flickering sun. The Kethtul, wanting to reconnect with their lost colonies. The Cetacean Alliance, driven by scientific curiosity. Even the smallest species, who had the most to lose but also the most to gain from galactic stability. "Then it's decided," High Counselor Vextai said. "We implement the temporal accord. All species will contribute minds to the consciousness networks. All species will learn to experience time as humanity did. And all species will share the burden of holding reality together." The work began immediately. Scientists from dozens of worlds collaborated on consciousness modification techniques. Engineers designed the quantum communication networks that would link minds across the galaxy. Philosophers and psychologists worked together to understand how different species could merge their thoughts without losing their individual identities. The first test network came online 3 months later. 23 individuals from 7 different species, their consciousness linked and trained to experience linear time. They were assigned a single star system on the edge of the collapse zone. For 6 hours, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the temporal distortions in that system began to stabilize. Cause and effect reasserted themselves. The planets remembered their proper orbits. The star recalled how to burn steadily. "It's working," Dr. Zixhai reported to the Council. "The network is successfully maintaining timeline stability in the test region." More networks came online. Hundreds, then thousands of linked minds, all working together to hold the galaxy's timeline steady. Species that had been enemies for centuries found themselves sharing thoughts, memories, and dreams. The Vrex learned to appreciate Altarian poetry. The cetaceans shared their deep ocean songs with desert-dwelling Kethtul. The barriers between species began to dissolve, and slowly the red zones on the galactic map began to turn green again. The stabilization wasn't without cost. Many individuals who joined the networks found their sense of self fundamentally changed. They thought in concepts that spanned multiple species' perspectives. They experienced time not just linearly, but with the weight of cosmic responsibility. They became something new. Not quite their original species, but not quite human either. But they also became something wonderful. For the first time in galactic history, species were truly united. Not by politics or treaties, but by shared consciousness itself. On the day the last collapse zone stabilized, a message appeared simultaneously in every consciousness network across the galaxy. It came from the stabilizer beacons, from the humans who had been holding reality together while the galaxy learned. "You did it," the message said, carried in harmonies that spanned dimensions. "You learned to work together. You learned to hold time steady through will and cooperation and love. The universe is safe in your hands now." The beacons began to power down one by one. The humans who had sacrificed their transcendence to buy the galaxy time were finally free to complete their transformation. "Thank you," came one last message, fading as the final beacon went dark. "We always believed you could learn to be better than you were. Now you've proven it. Take care of what we built together. Take care of each other." High Counselor Vextai stood in her office, looking out at stars that burned steady and true. The galaxy was stable again. Different than before, bound together by consciousness networks that made war nearly impossible and cooperation natural. It wasn't the galaxy that humanity had left, but it was the galaxy that humanity had hoped they could become. She touched a control on her desk, opening a communication channel to all the consciousness networks. "This is High Counselor Vextai, speaking to all network participants. Today marks the first anniversary of the completion of the Temporal Accord. The galaxy is stable. Reality holds together through our shared will and consciousness. But let us never forget the species that made this possible." She paused, looking up at the stars. "Humanity taught us that consciousness shapes reality, that cooperation is stronger than competition, that even in betrayal and loss, hope can survive. They gave us the tools to save ourselves, even after we abandoned them. In their honor, I propose that today be declared Consciousness Day throughout the galaxy, a day to remember what we learned from humanity, and to recommit ourselves to the cooperation that keeps our reality stable. Across the galaxy, in thousands of consciousness networks, billions of linked minds agreed. The motion passed unanimously, as all motions did now when beings shared thoughts as well as words. And in the quantum foam between dimensions, in spaces, that existed beyond normal time, humanity felt the galaxy's gratitude and smiled with satisfaction. They had left their reality in good hands. The galaxy had finally learned to hold itself together, not through force or politics, but through the simple human truth that consciousness shared is consciousness strengthened. And that was enough.